Hey guys, Philosopher here, and today we're talking about the top war offense teams for the month of April 2021. This has been a month with a lot of change. We are starting to see more people unlock Doctor Doom. That is definitely changing the meta. And obviously, Silver Surfer has had impact as well. I'm seeing a lot of him on war defense with the Inhumans team. You should check out our top war defense teams. That video is linked below. That will help you understand which teams I'm talking about are countered by the war offense teams that we're going to go through today. So, all right. So let's just get right to our top team, and that team is Black Order. Now, I will tell you this may very well be the last time I have Black Order as the top team. I will tell you when we look at this list, which I update regularly, is linked below as well. But Black Order is a team that has been at the top for so long, and I really think it's kind of tied with Shadowland as the top team. They really do different things. Shadowland gets lots of speed bar at spawn, so it can overtake some of these teams that are super fast. It can, for example, ability block Doom before he takes a turn, that sort of thing. But Black Order, it really takes down a lot of hefty teams because it's just a brute force team that does tons of damage, gets tons of early turns. Of course, it's got the flip, that sort of thing. And look, I happen to get a 6 red star maw, which you may have seen if you watched my orb opening video. But otherwise, I will tell you, I have not built up this team any further than I already had. I have not brought Corvus or Cole, for example, to G15. I just think, this is a time where many people have a very large Black Order. And this is a time where you could just, I think, leave your Black Order where it's at. Because it is able to punch up quite a bit amongst a variety of teams. It's going to be good for a long time. I still think this will be, in that top tier for a while. But as new war offense teams are introduced to the game, I do think that it's not quite as special as it once was. We used to talk in high-end war about, just Black Order it, right? Like it was a verb that you would save your Black Order for the hardest defenses. And now Shadowland is kind of in that category, XFactor, XMen, all these new teams that are also very, very strong, but still an amazing team. Obviously, if you're a newer player, you should still work on your Black Order as a war offense team, but you'll be getting it to, I imagine, a different power level than those of us did who used to rely on this in the arena. All right, so now let's talk about the second team on the list. You already saw it a moment ago, and that is Shadowland. I will link below my Shadowland team building guide as well as the T4 infographic. And what I'll just say is this team is absolutely amazing. And really what it does, it is the best Doom killer team out there because it gets a lot of speed bar at spawn thanks to the passive of White Tiger, who gets on spawn speed bar for herself and all Shadowland allies, depending on how many Shadowland allies are present. They also get offense up, and then Daredevil gives them super high effective speed at the start of the match with his passive. So they're moving before anyone else, and she could just go right in with her special and do a real number on, let's say, a Doctor Doom or an Emma Frost. Ability block for 2 turns, heal block, disrupted for 2 turns. This basically shuts down a Doom. You've seen me use this team to punch up and take down Doom Marauders, where it's Doom plus a Marauders team. You've also seen me punch up 350k on a 900k straight Marauders team. This is an insane Marauders counter that can punch up big time. It's also a team that just is a Doom Hunter team and is really another one of those teams like Black Order that you could use against a variety of teams. Unless the team itself gets a ton of speed bar, it really can beat pretty much everything at this point. Now, in the future, when there's more power creep, you'll need to bring up some of these other characters right now. But as of right now, the number one thing you need is a humongous White Tiger, a big Night Nurse, and you're going to be fine. Of course, Night Nurse is also seeing value in the skill nodes for the Doom Raid. All right, let's go to the next team on our list. Still in tier 1 is XFactor. Now, I got to tell you, look, you guys know I like XFactor. I certainly talk about it a lot. This team has gotten a lot better on more offense because if you remember back when we just had 2 members, Longshot and Shatterstar, I used to show off XFactor with these two dad bros with like Ultron, Namor, and some random character, usually Squirrel Girl, and I would just punch up on Marauders with just them. Well, then a couple things happened, and Shatterstar, for example, now applies defense down for 2 turns for all enemies, which is just devastating. And in his passive, this is huge. On War Offense, they gained 35% damage. This was not here before. So their damage, which was already insane, is now just through the roof. And this team can counter a whole bunch of teams, but it punches up really, really well on Marauders. If Black Order ever enters the meta on defense, they certainly would do well against Black Order as well. I still use Squirrel Girl for that Marauders matchup as the 5th, just because she cleanses the slow from Emma almost immediately after it's applied to you, which is helpful because slow reduces your speed bar gain by 50%. But there's lots of viable choices in that last spot. I've seen people use everything from Vulture to Red Guardian or Drax, Miss Marvel, Namor, Ultron, although he has kind of negative synergy with Multiple Man because they both have the summons. But look, this is a fantastic team. It's going to be a top-end War Offense team for a long time. And of course, these characters are very useful elsewhere. The full team plus Emma, I've used to one-shot all of the mutant nodes in the Doom Raid. Plus, Longshot and Shatterstar are great in the Cosmic Raids and have use in Arena and just are very useful characters. So definitely a good tool to have in your toolbox if you're in high-end war. All right, now I got to tell you, I really struggled with the tier rankings right at this level in here. In other words, I think there's an argument to be made for ordering these 3 teams in any particular order. They all do different things well, and this one here is the Hydra 3.0 team. This is a team that's very, very common in high-level war. I've been using this for months, and other players, top players that I've seen have been using it either on teams that I've been on or alliances that I've been going up against with for months, and this is the premier mercenary counter. I will link in my comments below. In the description below, I will link the video where I show this team off. But essentially, with this last spot, you're going to want Red Guardian, or if you need Red Guardian elsewhere, Drax. But Red Guardian is certainly a lot better. Some people prefer Hydra Sniper instead of Winter Soldier in the 5th spot. I have been been told by most players that run this that Winter Soldier is better for the unblockable heal block. But essentially the way this team works is that you get your Grenadier high enough to be the highest damage. He does get an additional 10% from the passive from Red Skull, additional damage here. So it's not the 22,000, it's 10% higher than that. If you have a T4 in Red Skull passive, it's actually 15%. People sometimes tell me, well, actually, he gets more from his own passive and this and that. Actually, those passives don't kick into his own till it's his own turn. So you just count the Red Skull passive. But the bottom line is if he's the highest damage, Taskmaster will apply Taunt on him and focus the enemy's attention on him. So this is a great counter to Mercenaries where you have one top character in Zemo and then a bunch of characters that would otherwise be on your bench or not be as useful, having a great use to counter a top war team. One thing I will say, however, is that while Mercenaries remain super tough and they, unlike Marauders, they aren't countered as well by teams like XFactor or Astonishing XMen. Nonetheless, this is not as versatile of a team. In other words, XFactor or XMen, they can be used against a variety of teams. Not so much Hydra 3.0, but it's so good at beating mercs and at really high levels, like 750k mercs, 800k mercs. You basically, if you don't have a Hydra 3.0 that's very well built, you're going to have to use Black Order. So it saves you from using the Black Order, which is in high levels, like diamond level war, very, very valuable. It really is a counter that can take out one of the toughest enemy defenses that's out there. All right, guys. The next on our list, the next team is Astonishing XMen. And a lot of you have asked me how to build your Astonishing XMen. I'll do a video on that to come, but the most important thing is to have a huge bishop and make him a striker. You also want to make sure your Jubilee and Beast are large enough to live and survive. And Jubilee's high enough to land debuffs. Whatever level you're at, for me at my level, she needs to be G14 for sure. But she's not the damager. He's the damager and the protector, really, of this team. These other two are more or less filler. If they lose some health, that's fine because it feeds turn meter to beast. And with this team, I can punch up really big against Sinister Six. You've seen that battle on this channel. And I can link to that below as well in the description. But what I will just say here is this team also can potentially be used to counter Doom by killing the Doom bots and getting turn meter from the Jubilee passive, just like the Symbiotes get that for 25% on enemy death. The difference, though, I will just say I think Symbiotes is a better counter because they also have ability block, which can be really useful to make sure that you stop Doom. So I think XMen are best used against Sinister Six, but they can be used against a variety of teams. They're a very top-end team, very powerful. One of the numerous OP teams that have been introduced to the game lately, and certainly it's comfortably here within Tier 1, and I'm sure will be for quite some time. And now that brings me to the next team on my list, and this is a team that I've moved up. Last month, this team was in Tier 2, and I really thought, it's useful against certain teams, basically just a counter to Sinister Six. But you know what? The Symbiotes have a new lease on life thanks to Dr. Doom. People who put their Doom on their Marauders team, for example, will see folks like me just beat their Doom with the Symbiote team, which is a pretty bad trade-off. You don't want your Dr. Doom team to be countered by Symbiotes. That always feels bad. And so really, this team now actually can play a big part in war and actually have a very important role for countering these teams. Like here's, for example, for my last war, we had, I did this war attack, and it was, an easy battle where it was, yes, it was a punch down, but it was Doom plus Marauders falling to Symbiotes, not hard whatsoever. That's the sort of thing that I think we're seeing a lot of right now in high-end war. And then, of course, Symbiotes still are useful against Sinister Six and, other teams as well. Definitely an important team. And, of course, they're still useful in the bio nodes and the Doom raid. So I do think that, this is a team that is worth investing in. You've likely already invested in them for DD4. So your investment can be put off to good use because and really what's doing all the work here, by the way, I should say for that counter, of course, is that Carnage is passive, giving speed bar when an enemy drops below 25% health. And then, of course, you have an ability block on Venom, which is huge. That can really stop Doom from using his ultimate, which will prevent him from destroying your team. All right, now we're starting to get to teams that are more niche. XForce is the next one, and I will tell you, XForce is a fantastic team. It was definitely at the very top in war when it came out, right under the Black Order, but it is starting to get power crept. This is a team that is still very useful against a variety of teams, but at very high levels. When you have 700k teams, this team starts to struggle against those 7 red star G15 Doc Ox, just out damaging the healing. They struggle against those massive Merc teams, 750k Merc teams. They just start falling off at high levels. With Mercs, Korath can screw up the matchup with RNG there. So, they're good, but they're definitely falling off. You definitely, if you want to use this team at high levels, you need to have a huge X23 and Negasonic. A lot of noobs will build Deadpool to be their biggest character here to give him the highest damage, but that really limits the size of your Negasonic and X23 because keeping him as the highest damage is hard, and then you won't get the oomph that you need at higher levels to be able to out damage, let's say Doc Ock or get the Mercs down. And really what this team relies on is Negasonic on her initial attack. And by the way, I should be making her a striker. She's generally better as a striker because usually the enemy is boosted and thus the deflects prevent the crits. But in any event, Negasonic, you want her to get characters under 50%, and then X23 kills them. She gets her speed bar when an enemy drops below 50% health, and then she takes them on with this ability here, and obviously she also uses that ability block. That's really how this team works, and this was the 1-2 punch that beats the team. And if you don't beat them with this 1-2 punch in the very beginning with Negasonic's ult, X23 special and ultimate, you're not going to win. And so that's really the way in which this team works. And it's still good. I still have it in tier 1 because it still could be used against a variety of teams. But at high levels, you're definitely starting to see the fall off. It's definitely not being relied on nearly as much as before. All right, so now we're going to go to our tier 2 war offense teams. Now, the latest one on here we just did a video on, and that is Hela Natural. This is where you take Hela off the Supernatural team, or excuse me, Elsa off the Supernatural team, replace her with Hela. It's a great team. I'm just finishing up building this team. I'm going to take Strange to G14 and bring Scarlet Witch up to level 75. That'll be good for my level. And essentially, the goal here is to have a team that can reliably beat Wave 1, and they do punch up huge against Wave 1 Avengers. They also can beat Sinister Six and some other teams, but they're basically a counter to Wave 1 Avengers, and they're really what keeps Wave 1 Avengers from being a Tier 1 defense, because they can be punched up on by this team that otherwise would be more of a niche offense. But this is a great war offense team that does counter Wave 1 Avengers, but that said, it's obviously T4 intensive. You need at least 5 T4s in the team. And it's a team that had fallen off quite a bit. But the addition of Hela in the team provides so much synergy that they have a lot of value. All right, now we're going to go to a climber on this list. And that is Brotherhood 2.0. This is a team that I think last month I had all the way down in Tier 3. I moved them up then in the middle of the month or earliest month, I should say, to the top of or the bottom of Tier 2. I'm now moving them up even higher in Tier 2. And it's simply because Brotherhood 2.0, which this drops Mystique and Sabretooth. It's Magneto, Blob, Toad, Pyro, and Juggernaut. They are just beating a whole bunch of teams. I do see, you saw this listed in the War Defense list. I've seen some real top alliances using this with Doom on War Defense, but dropping Pyro. But I will say right now they are so valuable on War Offense, and really it's the what makes this team good is, first of all, Magneto gets to go first with this speed bar gain on spawn on a full Brotherhood team, and then he blinds everybody, and that really can shut down certain teams. Even though XFactor's coming off defense, it's still really valuable against certain matchups, like, for example, Inhuman Coulson, if you don't have Surfer on it. And then Blob is the next character you want to have big. He just does a ton of damage, and he can be a real wall, and his counterattacks can really screw up the enemy team. You want that T4 in his passive, and that counterattack can just be absolutely brutal. So, definitely an important team to have. It's becoming increasingly important in high-end war, and that's why you see me investing in it. All right, so now let's go to our next team here. This is a team that really is moving more and more to war defense, which is the Uncanny XMen. I will tell you that the loss of Beast really hurt this team, but part of it is not just that, though. It's just general power creep. What people are doing to get over that is they're using Ultron or using Beast if they don't have Axemen built up as the fifth. But, you really kind of need Ultron to keep this team at this level in Tier 2. And some people even use Kingpin. He's not nearly as good because he's so slow. But the idea is finding a way through, let's say, Ultron or Beast to get offense up on Phoenix and Cyclops so they have enough damage to kill like a Merc team. But, this is a team that a lot of people are just throwing on defense now. It's seeing less and less usage on war offense. So it's definitely a faller on this list. But it's still listed here in this slot for if you're still using Beast of the team or using Ultron. All right, guys. So now the next team on this list is still used on war defense, much more than it's used on war offense, but it's increasingly being used on war offense, and that is Sinister Six. And the reason it's being used on war offense is it punches up big against Wave 1. It can also punch up big if you, at your level, like I know in Gold 4, people sometimes put Black Order in defense. It does punch up well against Black Order. But right now, it's still used mostly on defense. It does well there, but of course, it's countered by Axemen and Symbiotes. But, Axemen and Symbiotes are top-tier war offense teams, and so forcing your enemy to use a Symbiotes or Axemen here means it's something team that they won't use elsewhere. So it's still used a lot on war defense, but I do see it moving to offense as more teams are introduced to the game. All right, guys. And then we've got at the bottom of tier 2 another faller on this list, and that's Fantastic Four plus Ultron. I got to say, this was kind of the original reliable Marauders counter. That was if you wanted to save your Black Order and counter Marauders, you'd use this plus Ultron, because it's much more reliable than Power Armor plus Ultron. And I have to say that this team has been falling off because better Marauder counters are introduced to the game. It seems less reliable, and so you're just starting to see either Fantastic Four throw it on defense with She-Hulk, or just move down the list and being used as more of a 10th attack team, that sort of thing, just kind of waiting in the wings, in case you need another attack, but really not one of the top 9 teams that top players are using right now at the very high levels of the game. All right, guys, now let's go down. We're already down here in tier 3. And that's the next team is Inhumans. I got to say, this is a team that's almost completely at high levels moved to defense. And it's because, look, Quake and Karnak don't add a lot to the team, so you drop them. You put in Coulson and either Surfer, Miss Marvel, or Fury in that order in terms of power. And that makes the team go and makes them much better, much stronger on more defense. That's where I run them. But, it's still viable as an offense team if you want to use them there. If you can't spare them and you need to have them used. Obviously, these 3 are the big characters. The team does get better if Crystal's big as well, and you want to get your Black Bolt as big as possible. A large Yo-Yo is really helpful to keep her alive, and her damage once you get her at this point, and I actually have a T-Forwarder special, it actually could be pretty substantial as well. I do think this team will be further hybridized in the future, and Black Bolt may be useful on offense in the future, given that we have a character that just is going to get added, the Heroes for Hire Colleen Wing, who does revive. So, that is something that Black Bolt does in terms of preventing revives. So we could see them moving in the future, but for right now, tier 3. Now we're going to go, we have Uncanny without Beast. I feel like I've already talked about them. This team's really fallen off without Beast and are throwing a lot on defense. Here's Zemo Hydra without Red Skull. These teams down here are really just, these are the teams that had fallen off and needed some hybridization. In other words, Zemo Hydra counters Red Skull Hydra very well. Punches up big against them, but doesn't do enough against other teams. One thing I will just say is I get a lot of you sending me DMs or posting on the Discord or putting in the comments that you have some team that has Zemo plus the Dad Bros plus Ultron plus whatever plus Surfer whatever, and you're punching up big. Obviously, a team that's comprised of super characters on War Offense is going to all do very well. The question is, can you spread out your super characters and still have many different, 9 different war attack teams that are powerful? That's how this list is focused on. So Zemo needs a little bit more than just him and the Hydra minions, or him and Hydra Grenadier. The original Zemo Hydra, where it was like, Hydra Grenadier and Crossbones and Winter Soldier. He needs a little more than that to be successful. But I will say that, with the addition of Red Skull, he's much better. So I don't think you're going to see this comp without Red Skull much anymore on War Offense. If people don't run the Hydra 3.0 at some point in the future, they'll probably be putting Zemo on another team. All right, now let's just looking here at some of the other Powercraft teams. Supernatural, you really want to use Hela with them. Hela's not good on war defense anymore. Fantastic Four without Ultron are really kept falling off. They're just not all that useful. Human Torch, by the way, is the character that is dropped for Ultron. Power Armor has lost its power, to put it mildly, and they're really not relied on at all in high-level war and are kind of thrown on the sidelines. Even Power Armor plus Ultron just can't really be used a heck of a lot other than just against really poor low-end defenses. Wave 1 Adventures is also exclusively used on defense. And then these teams I just regard as filler. They really can only punch up against old meta or punch across or even punch down on low meta. So this is just sort of, these are teams that you shouldn't be using in high-end war much at all. All right, guys. So if you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, check out our Discord. I have the link below. We have lots of discussions of war offense counters and the best teams to use there. And then, of course, check out my Twitch stream. That's also linked below. and be part of the discussion.